You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. We've got a full house today. Lewis Trott is sitting in as co-host over there.
Hello. We're
going to be doing this once in a while, where we're going to have rotating co-hosts while Bob is taking the winter hiatus that he's taken, and Eric's over there with his brand new headset. It's a broadcast headset / microphone.
It is awesome.
Yes. I said, you're like a regular Howard Cosell over there, and Eric said, who's that?
No idea.
So
they tried to explain it. I still don't know.
He was a broadcaster. I don't know.
But I know it's a whole lot better than the crappy old mic that I've been using.
Well, and the beauty of it is when we get to doing the live videos and you're cramped into this corner, we can open up some desk space by getting rid of this boom arm, and you don't have to. Yeah, it'll be great. You can just sit as comfortably as you want with that headset on,
and I will,
and it'll be wonderful. Just don't be offended if I keep muting you and unmuting you, because now that means that you have a microphone constantly next to your mouth. We have to listen to your breathing and smacking your gums.
Because I realize that nobody is listening to these shows to hear my ridiculous voice speak on anything.
It's not true. You have a tremendous fan club. I see all the love letters that come in, and I burn them.
As big as Howard Cosell had.
Yeah. Today our guest is RIck Schaus. He is co-author of the book Lee is Trapped and Must Be Taken, which came out in 2019. He's a Brookfield, Wisconsin native. He went to the University of Wisconsin for 2 years, and then he said, no, this isn't for me, so I'm going to enlist in the Army. And he enlisted in 1971 and stayed in for 30 years, retiring as a sergeant major. I think this is the highest rank we've had on the show so far.
No.
We had the colonels on.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Tom Vossler and Jeff McCausland.
All right. Well, this is the one that even the commissioned officers respect, though, isn't it? The sergeant major? Isn't he the one that everybody has? I'm the only guy in this room that wasn't in the service, so I don't know. I just know that he's kind of like the backbone of the Army. Isn't that true?
NCOs are.
Well, okay, sorry, Lewis.
Top
of the heap.
Top of the heap is
he's the top of the
major.
Heap. Yeah, okay. Anyway, after retiring, he decided he's going to do some research, and he wrote this book, Lee is Trapped, along with Thomas J. Ryan. Rick, welcome to Addressing Gettysburg.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. So, Meade, George Meade, after the Battle of Gettysburg, I was just telling on the show we recorded this morning, I was telling the story that when I used to come down here with my father, we'd take tours, we'd do whatever, and he would always say as we're driving home, I just don't understand, why didn't Meade chase after Lee and destroy him? And at the time, I didn't know much about the battle. I didn't have an answer for him. But my gut feeling was, I don't think you know what you're talking about, Dad. And then finally, as I started learning more about it, I would say, okay, I think I have some answers to your question. Why didn't Meade chase after and destroy Lee right away? And still he would go, yeah, but come on. Like, it was just, But you lay out some evidence here that he had some chances, correct? I mean, is that essentially the gist of the book?
There were numerous opportunities that General Meade had to at least engage Lee's defeated army as it retreated, and then especially as it went into position. Lee had to assume a defensive position simply because the river was too high. His pontoon bridge had been mainly destroyed at Falling Waters, and all he had was a couple of ferry boats to get all of his non-combatants across prior to actually attempting to cross his combat forces.
Right.
In the face of the Army of the Potomac. Lee fully expected to be attacked at some point. He expressed he was afraid of that. He had confidence in what was left of his army, but they were in a very bad situation trying to cross a river in the face of an armed and superior opponent. And not the easiest thing in the world, especially considering the number of supplies, the thousands of wounded he was trying to get across, and somewhere around 5,000 Union POWs who had been captured at Gettysburg and were not paroled. They were not supposed to accept parole, so they ended up being under escort. That's 5,000 more bodies to get across the river to try and get back to the safety of Virginia.
And it's not easy to cross a river when there's nobody threatening to attack you.
Especially in the conditions Lee found himself.
Yes. So Lee's got this threat of a possible Union attack, and nothing happens.
That's essentially how it ended up.
Right.
I will say to start out with that
Turn the mic more into your mouth there. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
What Tom and I wrote probably had everything been normal, as opposed to this year being normal, that opportunity probably would have never existed. If the river had stayed down,
Lee would have been gone.
Union cavalry had not destroyed the pontoon bridge.
Yeah.
Lee would have reached the river, crossed his army, POWs, supplies, everything that he had, and that would have been that. The opportunity arose. The river, of course, from the constant rains that came after the battle, the Potomac rose surprisingly fast. And then on the 4th of July, a cavalry detachment operating out of French's command at Frederick destroyed, literally partially destroyed, but mainly destroyed, the pontoon bridge at Falling Waters, which Lee had used, along with the fort at Williamsport, to get and his invasion, if you will, of Maryland and then into Pennsylvania. So Lee and his army found themselves in a very precarious position. And because of the bridge being destroyed and because of the Potomac being so high that it could not be forded, General Meade found himself with an opportunity to pursue by a parallel course, which meant it was going to take him longer to do that. But he ended up having enough time that he had a number of options he could have exercised in order to what President Lincoln expected and had ordered as commander-in-chief, and General Halleck, who waffled on the issue back and forth, and go get him. Well, take your time, be careful. So Meade didn't really gain a lot of support from Halleck, but the instructions from the president were very clear. Lee should be brought to battle again and possibly at least more badly damaged, in addition to what happened at Gettysburg, or defeated, because destroyed is the word usually used. Everybody goes, well, nobody can, you're not going to destroy. Yes, but you could compel his surrender if you, say, cut him off from his route of retreat and boxed him in. And at some point, he would have realized if he couldn't get out of it, that surrender would be the only option.
We know today where everybody was, what happened. We have the benefit of hindsight and, being perfect, never making mistakes in our lives.
Yeah, really.
But let's go back to the close of the Battle of Gettysburg. And what is the condition that both armies are in? We just did a show on the Committee on the Conduct of the War. And who was it that, was it Howe that was saying, like, we were just kind of just sitting there resting the whole time during the battle? Remember Lewis?
Yeah. He's one of a number of people that said it was, relatively speaking, 3 days of rest. The terrain did the work for us.
Right.
And in the final report, again, this is after the war ends in 1965, that's in the final report that it was, relatively speaking, 3 days of rest.
Yeah.
For the Union Army.
Right. And we know that that's not true. We know that they had a pretty hard fight, to hold that terrain and everything. But so what is Meade's condition personally and as an army? Like, is he well rested? Is the army well rested? And, they've taken 20-something thousand casualties. So what are we starting with here? And then, because Lincoln, for example, saying, go after Lee. Well, what does Lincoln know? He's not on the ground. He's back in Washington. So what are we dealing with on the ground?
both armies had suffered considerable losses in both manpower and leadership roles, individual general officers, colonels. And one factor I think that a lot of people don't figure into it is that when a general is killed or wounded or out of action, you have bump up commanders. So not only do you have the next in line, the next senior officer taking that position, but it goes, then if he's a division commander, which he probably is, the next senior becomes a division commander, and it goes to brigade command. So you have a number of changes in command structure of officers who are not familiar with either the role or the unit that they're now commanding.
Right.
Meade himself replaced 3 corps commanders during the period that the book covers in 11 days. One immediately, as soon as he heard that Reynolds had been badly wounded or killed, he would replace Abner Doubleday in command of the 1st Corps with John Newton, who was a division commander in the 6th Corps. Yeah. So here you have Newton, who's not familiar with the 1st Corps, and Doubleday, who actually fought his corps very well on the first day. Of all the commanders, he probably had more control of an entire corps during a significant part of a day than any of the other corps commanders. And he did perform well. The 1st Corps did a good job in the position they were on the first day.
Sure.
So, but Doubleday is out of it. Newton is now in. On the 3rd day after Hancock and Gibbon had assumed command of the 2nd Corps a couple of times during the battle when Hancock was bumped up to take more senior roles. Both of them were wounded on the 3rd day, and William Hayes was appointed to command the 2nd Corps by General Meade, who had a carte blanche on who he would.
Right.
Halleck in Washington, the authorities, they essentially said, don't worry about the seniority system. Pick who you want if you have to replace an officer. So Meade, it's hard to figure out why he picked William Hayes. There was a general who apparently was at Gettysburg on the 3rd day, but what he was doing, it's really almost impossible to see what job he had. And then suddenly Hancock is wounded, Gibbon is wounded, and now William Hayes, the information on Hayes is really incredibly thin. And suddenly William Hayes is now commanding the 2nd Corps instead of, or in lieu of, Winfield Scott Hancock. And most everybody, Hancock, hey, he was an up-and-comer. He was, the guy. And then later, General Birney in the 3rd Corps had assumed command when General Sickles was wounded on the 2nd day, and Birney would be replaced by General William French, who had been with the Army, had left the Army, was in command at Frederick, and he was another officer that you would scratch your head and say, why would Meade select French? French is kind of a portly gentleman who really had no reputation as an aggressive officer. Now, Sickles, not the most popular officer among the senior officers. He was a very aggressive officer, and he was well loved by the 3rd Corps. Yes, he was inexperienced in that, but he was literally a fighter who was certainly more aggressive and would conduct himself probably better, didn't do a bad job at Chancellorsville, even though he had been ordered to evacuate a position, which was critical there.
Right.
But Sickles was out of it. Now you had William French. He was another scratch your head and take a look at it. Same thing with Newton. With Newton, Newton's reputation wasn't that bad. He was a fellow engineer of General Meade. So there's the speculation that Meade was going to a fellow engineer who he would probably have known and trusted to command the 1st Corps, or what was left of the 1st Corps.
Gotcha.
So both armies were badly damaged. Just every unit in Lee's army had been engaged at some point during the battle. That's not true for the Union Army. If you look at who fought on the first day, the 2nd Corps, the 1st Corps, and the 11th Corps on the first day.
Right.
But none of the other corps came up in time to take part in the engagement. So they literally did not fight that much. The 11th Corps was engaged on East Cemetery Hill. 1st Corps to some extent in various areas, but they weren't, other than the attack on the evening of the 2nd, the 11th Corps was not heavily engaged again, but both had been badly damaged.
Yeah.
This episode is now available over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. Please help support the show and become a patron today.